Serious, what are some scary, horrifying, creepy things that have happened to you, or in general, that could have a plausible explanation, but still freak you out? When I was a little kid, my parents and I used to have these walkie-talkies that we would use to talk to each other at night while I was in bed, so no one had to walk down the hallway to my room. We had our own special nicknames that we used like truckers. Mine was Pitter Patter, but they never told me why. One night, I was reading in my room and the walkie-talkie starts going off. "Come in, Pitter Patter, come in." I pick it up to listen to what my parents have to say. "We heard you pitter-pattering up and down the halls. Stay in your room, please." I never left my room at night, like ever. I was too terrified of the dark to. Needless to say, there was no one else in the household who could have been running up and down the halls. Apparently, they had heard this every night thinking that it was me, and that's how I got my name. Before my parents split up, we used to live in this huge old house. We lived in that old leaky house until I was about 14. The thought was to renovate the nearly 100-year-old house, but I guess life got in the way for my parents. The house had 2 floors, and all of our bedrooms was up on the 2nd floor. The largest part of the 2nd floor was dominated by the attic. It was a creepy attic, filled with discarded things from both our family and the previous owners. I knew the attic pretty well, because although I was terrified of it, me and my best friend would hide things we shouldn't have there. A stolen bass of Albert, fireworks and other things 10, 14-year-olds would hide from their parents. The attic had old wooden door that had a key in it. The door was always locked unless someone was in there. My bedroom shared a wall with this attic. I had insomnia when I was a kid, or at least the doctors told my parents it was insomnia. One of my biggest secrets is that I slept with a nightlight on, hiding under the covers and pillows until I was 14. I would strategize how I would sleep and make it look like the bed was empty by sleeping under the mattress or by having my head under the pillows. The reason? Almost every night I would hear stuff from the attic shift and move. It often sounded like somebody was rolling heavy balls, like bowling balls or the like, across the floor in the attic. Sometimes I would hear knocks on the walls. Sometimes I heard what sounds like whispers. Me and my best friend would sometimes summon the courage to explore the attic in the daytime, always with the door open, never alone. I was obsessed with finding the balls I heard rolling across the floor. The other sounds I could write off as sounds a house would make, but the rolling balls and the whispers were unexplained. We never found the rolling balls or any other source that could explain it. I'm sure there could be a plausible explanation, but I never found one. I do not believe in the supernatural, but for some reason I still get scared thinking about it. We moved when I was 14, and the first night after we moved, I slept with all the lights off, head on the pillow. I have slept well since. I spoke with my mother about these things a couple of years ago. When I told her about the sounds, she grew a fearful expression and said she didn't want to talk about it anymore. We were dining, our family, plus a house helper, and we heard a click-wise sound. So we turn around and witness our front door's door knob slowly turns and unlock itself. Then the door slowly swing wide open with no one on the other side. We were frozen. Just married the day before. We had a private ceremony at a B&B. We were the only guests at the house and the owner and her partner were the only witnesses. The next morning we left really early to get to the airport, so we did not get the breakfast. We stopped at an IHOP restaurant to get breakfast. While there we talked about our trip, but made no mention of getting married or about it being our honeymoon. While eating, a woman of about 60 or so walks up to us and says, "I just know you are going to love your honeymoon and have a wonderful life together." Then she walked off. This didn't happen to me, but to my sister and her husband, only a few weeks ago. They heard someone ringing their doorbell at like midnight, and it was really urgent sounding. They knew their neighbor had been having some heart problems, and so they were worried something was up with him, and so the husband ran down to open it. But as soon as he opened it, just a small amount too, this random guy, not the neighbors, slams into it, busts his way in, and slams my brother-in-law into the wall. My Bill was trying to fight the guy off, and the guy would shove him to the ground, and then start to make his way toward the stairs. My sister heard this, saw he was trying to get upstairs, where their bedroom and their kids' bedrooms are, and basically snuck up on him with a vase, and whacked him with it. Apparently this guy was not expecting her to be there, cause it startled him enough that they were able to overpower him and get him outside again. Of course they locked the door and called the police. The police, though, I guess they figured that cause he was outside now and the doors were locked, that it was a lower priority. Which is fair, but even so, I'm a bit appalled at how long they took to come to their house. Apparently it was like 45 minutes. And they got there like 5 minutes after he left. But this is the worst part. In my mind, this guy spent that entire time trying to get into their house. Rattling the door knobs, trying different codes on their electronic lock. He would scream at them to let him in, then go quiet, and try to break the code, then get all pleasant, and try to nicely convince them to let him in, then scream at them some more, and then he'd back off, and go across the street, but would stand there staring at their upstairs windows, and as soon as the lights went off he'd be back at the door again, for 40 minutes. It sounded like something out of a horror movie. My sister and Bill were especially concerned cause he was so insistent to get into *THEIR* house, which makes it seem not like some random break-in, and cause he had tried to get upstairs to where the kids are a few times. It sounded absolutely terrifying, and of course they were especially frustrated cause if they cops had gotten there literally a few minutes earlier, they would have caught the guy, and now the chances are slimmer. I'm really glad they're all okay, though. When I was in 9th grade I lived with just my grandma. She was out for whatever reason and I took the opportunity to watch porn without headphones. While watching a video I heard some rustling leaves from outside. I immediately paused the porn as I was creeped out that it may be a person that can hear my porn too. Sometime later, don't recall if it was weeks or months, I was moving soon with my dad as he got a new job in another state. Within my last few days here, I was walking home from the bus stop after school. There was one kid who lived next door who gets off at the same stop, I think 2 grades or so below me. For some reason he started making these weird moaning noises at me. I had no idea what he was doing. Over 5 years later I realized the connection of the two events, and was even more creeped out. When I was a little kid I heard my mom calling my name. I left the room and asked her what she wanted, but she said she didn't call for me. I went back to the room and all the doors were ripped off my entertainment center and broken. I got punished for it, but I refused to believe that somehow I hallucinated, blacked out, then gained the super strength of a dozen preschoolers. This is a copy/paste from an older thread, but here is my unexplained story. Totally true, swear to whatever you want. Honest, this happened just as I describe. I don't believe in ghosts, but to this day I can't explain this with my understanding of science and physics. I was dating a girl on the rifle team I was on. We stayed late after school and practiced shooting. We were in ROTC and this was Alabama in the 90s. We'd stay till 7ish, then her mom would pick us up. We'd normally wait in the band room because it looked out to the parking lot. This night it's late, dark, cold, winter time, probably December. The only people in the building are me, her, and our sergeant major, who was a tunnel rat in Vietnam, by far the hardest and most intense man I've ever known. Dude really inspired me, greatest example of humanity I've ever met. Anyways, me and her are standing in the band room, looking out the window, when about 6 feet away from us this huge double set of tubular bells, it looked like this but doubled, suddenly starts vibrating and shaking violently. I turn and look at it, and before I can say WTF the whole instrument flies at us flipping end over end. It crashes past me about 2 feet away and smashes into the wall on the other side of the room, about 15 to 20 feet away. I hit 100% pure fight or flight panic. I don't look at her. I don't say hey did you see that. I just bolt. I run as fast as I fucking could for SGM. I don't look back. I don't stop. I find SGM in his office and only then do I stop and turn around. She is half a step behind me, just completely pale. We freak out and tell SGM everything. He tells us to stay in his office and goes to look. Comes back a minute later and asks if we were messing with the bells because they are in a mess on the floor now, and we say no and explain it again. SGM just nods and we all wait in his office. Then he escorts us out to her mom's car through the band room. That was the last I ever heard about it from him. Me and the girl stopped seeing each other, and I'd lost contact with her. But I'm positive she would tell the same exact story. That's the tubular bells story. One time, I was jogging on a treadmill we had in the basement of our house. As I slowed it down to cool off, I felt this hand pushing my back, causing me to nearly fall forward. Since I have 3 older brothers that lived with me at the time, I assumed it was one of them, since we did that sort of stuff to each other all the time. When I looked around, there was nobody, and when I went upstairs, I discovered I was home alone. I had a handprint on my back for about 30 minutes, then it vanished completely. Still not sure what could have done it,